One of the most popular art movements in the Filipino art scene is the figurative art movement. Early figurative art in the Philippines is mostly realistic and classical. However, in modern times, surreal depictions of human figures and conditions entered figurative art. A visual mix of hues, and in some cases of irony, brought in to add drama to an otherwise commonplace event or situation. Fernando Amorsolo, known as the Grand Old Man of Philippine art, was known for his work with figurative art. He was labeled the country's first national artist in 1972 by then President Ferdinand Marcos. Amorsolo was a figurative artist who attended the University of the Philippines and then trained abroad in Madrid, Spain. When Amorsolo returned, he continued to paint and rose to prominence. Returning from his studies abroad in the 1920s, Amorsolo developed his backlighting technique that would become his trademark. There were often whole figures and large landscapes that were seen prominently illuminating in his many canvases. His school of art was largely characterized by countryside scenery with golden sunlight. Amorsolo's work portrays his love of the Philippine sun and the nature that surrounds it. During his career peak, the Philippines was in the midst of the Second World War. Fernando Amorsolo and his family lived in the middle of a Japanese-occupied Manila. Despite not letting the war stop his work, it did, however, cause a change in his aesthetic. Personal tragedy during the war caused his work to contain depictions of human suffering and devastation throughout his canvases. His paintings were no longer made in conjunction with the client's preferences, but were reflections of the conflicting emotions raging within him. Amorsolo was deeply affected as he watched his surroundings ravaged by war. He painted burning structures and mothers fleeing the scene with their children in tow. Women's faces were filled with terror and despair as they were engulfed by death and destruction in their surroundings. Tragedy was portrayed through subtle means. In one of his most famous works, a woman is pictured clutching her veil while kneeling in front of her dead son, who is apparently a guerrilla soldier that was killed during a battle. The woman is looking up to the sky with a calm look of sorrow on her face. The subtle and restrained depiction proved to be a more powerful portrayal, as the woman's tearless eyes conveyed a more intense form of pain. It communicated to the viewer the deep sense of loss a mother feels when her child is taken away from her. Men were represented not with expressions of rage, but with looks of defiance. In his piece entitled Defensa de Honor, the man protecting the woman from being raped by a Japanese soldier had a determined but subdued expression. This was conveyed by the fiery expression in his eyes and the slight but firm downside turn of the corners of his mouth. Amidst the tragedy of the war, Amorsolo still inserted a hint of hope personified by the implied resistance of his characters to the occupying Japanese forces. His wartime paintings are considered among his finest works and were exhibited at the Malacañang Palace in 1948. Fernando Amorsolo died in 1972 at the age of 79.